Commission and between states and non-state actors for human rights in Africa, a lot leaves to be desired, considering the fact that in many African states today, the rule of law is still in a precarious state.
The African Commission way back in the past established the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, evoking African civil society partnership with governments to play an active role in charting out a future for the human rights for the continent by enriching the principles, policies and programs of the Union. This forum is thus regarded as a perfect platform for stakeholder dialogue for the overall objective of promoting and protecting human rights in Africa.
These initiatives by the African Union and the African Commission in bringing an inclusive relationship with NGOs is a clear indication of the vital role that NGOs play in supporting these organs in the promotion and protection of human rights.
The human rights defenders concur that though Africa today has a human rights system comprising numerous instruments and institutions with a human rights mandate, it may not be effectively implemented and actualized without the active, consistent support and collaboration of NGOs.
I therefore wish to renew my call to NGOs to continue to work even harder in the crusade against human rights violations. Let me conclude by acknowledging that there is an inherent value in focused discussion among participating NGOs in the implementation of our shared commitments. The NGO Forum exemplifies the crucial role that African Commission continues to play in engaging and inspiring civil society organizations all over the continent.
Experts in the field of human rights and democracy at this convergence are therefore expected to facilitate a series of presentations on the overview of the situation of human rights and democracy in Africa, the United Nations System-Wide Action Plan on Gender Equity and Reproductive Rights of Women, the Durban Declaration and a Plan of Action, minority issues, and the protective mandate of the African Commission.
It is important that we, governments and NGOs, work together, bearing in mind the heavy responsibility to our peoples attached to this relationship. It is only through concerted efforts that we can overcome the challenges facing our countries, regions, and continent at large.
As African Commission for Human and People's Rights and the NGO communities fortified its march for the cause of humanity, the human rights instrument of the continent acknowledged that the African continent is plagued with serious widespread human rights violations and armed conflicts accompanied by social unrest that continue unabated and leading to appalling human rights abuse. The challenges underscore the need for continuous mobilization and constructive engagement by the NGO communities, states parties as primary duty bearers, and the African Commission. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
Well, we apologize for bringing you the wrong report there. Instead of the UNDP Post-2015 Development Forum, the story there by Louis Mendy has to do with the 53rd session of the African Session on Human and People's Rights in Banjul. We now go with the UNDP Post-2015. As part of its development advocacy and efforts to increase knowledge, share best practices and build partnerships in order to promote enabling frameworks aimed at reducing poverty and human suffering, the United Nations Development Programme recently opens a day's forum on the post-2015 development agenda. Details in this report.
The Millennium Development Goal Agenda stems from its focus on a limited set of human development goals and targets. These include the eradication of poverty and hunger, universal access to primary education, reducing maternal mortality and improving maternal health, promoting gender equality and empowering women, combating HIV and AIDS and other diseases, ensuring environmental sustainability and developing a global partnership for development. Abdoulaye Mamjai, post-2015 national consultant, dilated on the importance of the forum, saying it will encourage an inclusive debate on the post-development 2015 development agenda, whilst at the same time providing provide analytical-based inputs and ideas that will build a shape global vision on the future we want. Jai also indicated that the meeting will intensify voices of the poor and other marginalized groups in formal negotiation processes so that they are better informed about the aspirations of a broad spectrum of society for the post-2015 agenda.
Defining the objectives beyond 2015 alone, it was agreed, was not enough. How those objectives are designed is equally important, if not the most important aspect of the definition of that agenda. Now, what is the objective or objectives of the country dialogues? One, it is to stimulate and encourage an inclusive debate on a post-2015 development agenda, as well as to provide an analytical base, inputs and ideas that build a shared global vision on the future that we want.
Poverty reduction was the main topic of discussion at the forum. Madi Jabate, Director of Programs Tango, outlined that global poverty levels show that more than half of the world's population live below the poverty line. Good governance, he said, helps in the fight against poverty and further increases living standards. This he added.
In the UNDP Human Development Report 2007, it was noted that more than 80% of the world's population lived in countries where income differentials were widening and that the poorest 40% of the world's population accounted for 5% of global income, while the richest 20% accounted for 3/4 of world income. We can go and list a number of situations, but let me just go, not to speed up time. That the green picture of the world painted here shows clearly that indeed the state of the world has improved very minimally, and in any case, the situation is not invariable. I need not mention the fact that the growing and excruciating poverty, inequality, and deprivation have corresponding effects on the incidence of crime, violence, and abuse, which in many cases are exploiting social, economic, and political systems to perpetuate themselves.
Amikan, Principal Economist, Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, spoke on the significant strides by the government in the context of women empowerment and maternal mortality over the years.
Significant strides has been made to involve women in decision-making positions. However, challenges still remain. For instance, women in parliament are represented by 1.06%, and for area councils, 13.91%. And the target for 2015 is 33%. So clearly, we're not going to meet this target. But efforts are being made to involve more women in decision-making positions.
The day's development forum convened by the United Nations Development Programme is expected to foster dialogue and discussions on the post-2015 development agenda so as to ensure wider and deeper national participation in these processes. For GRTS News, I am Abdullah Baji.
We'll be back with news from Beyond the Source after this break.
Me na pensioner. I don't get money, and I really need money right now. I go for get out.
That make you put your hand on job.
Yes.
You know, you forget to say na pensioner. Our social security are common rights now. Then they pay 15 months drawback to all pensioners. And you know tap they get salary increase for all pensioners. Monica, I need the work.
Yes, so Auntie Medina, waiting pageants they tell you all not true. Social security now, then they give 15 months drawback to all pensioners. And not that no more, then don't add back for the salaries them. As they talk to you so, people in they queue for collecting your money. They can not true, they tell me. Not true are they talk. Not they are they walk. And me are they go. If me na you, no wait. Me are not they wait. Anything are they go. Go. Pa Jones.
Monica.
Social security.
Now we know.
Now we know.
social security. Ninga yatra mumu ila pension be social security. Because me drawback. Karta nilu drawback ko yeweleti. Mbata je sansa ngandata. Okola pension jol be la fal.
Ah o mo yata ba.
Kan you follow bedo ko le social security?
Yo. Nakeba. Na. Aka mem foyle. To nyaba. De bedo ko social security. Bara kan mem fo rek. To mo fem pensionnaire gambe banko kanja. Social security yela pensionnaire dat la fat. Ko do la fat.